All right, let's continue this. I do realize that some of this is complicated. Maybe some of you are picking this up right away, and a bunch of us probably aren't. And that's why these are notes and that we're going over them somewhat together. And so I've got 3 more to try to do. And then I don't know about you, I would probably recommend watching these videos a couple times. Let's take a look at the first one here. So we want to make these into whole numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 4 times 10 to the 7. But then we got to check to see if it's a positive or negative 7. So I made this number here to here. I made this number bigger. So I need to balance it by making this side smaller, which means this needs to be a minus sign. So that is the first one. This needs to become a whole number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 6 times 10 to the 6. Now, I went from this really, really tiny number, 0.000006, and made it bigger. So I need to balance it by making this side smaller. And therefore, this would need to become a negative. Now I can go use my exponent laws. Well, first 4 times 6 is 24. Times 10, negative 7, and negative 6. Now we can add these. Negative 7 plus a negative 6. Adding 2 negatives is you're just adding them. It's just the answer will be negative. So negative 7 and negative 6 will become a negative 13. Normally that's it. You're done. However, we need to make sure that this a value, this number that's on front, is actually less than 10. So right now the decimal place is at the end. I need to move it 1 over there to make it 2.4. Now I went from 24 to there, so I made this number smaller. Therefore, I need to balance it by making this number bigger. And I need to do that. Yeah, so I went here, I made this number smaller, so I made it negative. That just means I made it smaller. So I need to balance it out by making this side bigger. And I moved it smaller by 1, so I make this bigger than 1. So on a number line, here's 0, negative 1, negative 2, blah, 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 blah. So here's negative 13. If I want to move it bigger, I need to move it over this direction. That's negative 12. So I'm going to make this a negative 12. So this is my final answer. Again, what did I do? At the very beginning, I made this a 4 and made it a 7. I had to make it a negative 7 to make sure it balanced. I made this a 6 to the power of 6. Again, I had to make it negative to make sure it's balanced. 4 times 6 is 24. The exponent laws, I could go 7 and 6. I could add them up to be 13, but they're both negative, so I made a negative 13. Then I had to move the decimal place over here to make it 2.4. That made the number smaller, so by 1 decimal place. So I need to make this bigger by 1 exponent. Negative 13, adding 1 would get me to negative 12. I realize there's a lot going on there, so let's just try another one. Over here, we need to move this over to get a whole number, so that's 56. How many times do we need to move this over? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I had a number really, really, really small, 0.000056, and I made it bigger. Therefore, I have to balance it by making this side smaller. So I'm going to go negative 9. And then I have a decimal place here. I need to make this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I make it 7 at 10 to the 6. Now I took 7 million and I made it 7. So I made that smaller. So I need to balance it by making this side bigger. So it's a positive 6. So I'm okay there. It already is a positive 6. Now that you've done that, you can then do any division. So 56 divided by 7 is 8. And when we've got this, we subtract. So when we're dividing, we subtract. So negative 9 subtract 6. 8 times negative 9 subtract 6 is negative 15. Now, normally we have to move this to make this number less than 10, but it already is. So we are done. So to recap, I moved the decimal place all the way over to get 56. And I made that number huge. I went from 0.000 to something like 56. So I made that number way larger. So I balanced it by making it a negative 9. 9 is the number of decimal spots, but negative to balance it. Then I had a huge number right here, which is like 7 million, and I lowered it to 7, so I really made it smaller, so I balanced it by making it up a positive 6. Then I can go 56 divided by 7 is 8. Negative 9 minus 6 is negative 15, and I'm done. Let's try another one. Now I've got this, I got to make whole numbers. So I can make this 144. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times 10 to the 9. So I have a really small number here, and I made it a pretty large number, 144. So I made it a large number. I need to balance it this side by making this side a negative 9. So I'll make it a negative 9. And here I'm going to have a whole number, 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 10 to the 6. So I have this number here. I have a really small number, and I made it 12. So I made it a much bigger number. Like obviously 12 is not a big number, but it is a lot bigger than 0.000012. So I made it a big number, so I have to balance it by making this side a smaller number, a negative. So I'll make this one negative. Now, 144, I can do the left side here. 144 divided by 12 is 12. And 10, these are the same base, so I can subtract. So I got negative 9 subtract, so there's negative 9, subtract negative 6. Now whenever you are subtracting a negative, that's the same thing as adding. So this is actually 12 times 10 to the negative 9 plus 6 is going to be negative 3. You have negative 9 and you add 6, you get negative 3. Now normally we'd be done. Now normally we'd be done, but this number is not smaller than 10. So I need to move the decimal place over and make it a 1.2. Now that's me moving the decimal place over by 1. So I made the number from 12 to 1.2. I made that number smaller by 1 decimal place. So I need to make this side bigger by 1 exponent. So I'm going to add an exponent to this. Negative 3 plus another exponent plus 1 would be negative 2. All right, on a number line, there's 0, 1, 2, 3, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So here I am at negative 3. If I add 1, I'm going to land there, which is negative 2. And so that is my final answer. So I'm going to zoom out. There are, I think, 6 practice questions in the worksheet that would be really important for you to practice these things, because I've got no more to do. You can always ask me some questions online. However, it's really good if you have questions to first make sure you watch all of these and make all of your notes. Try them on your own. Try the worksheets, and then you can always contact me.